Hello everyone. This story is about, what if God-like Naruto was able to feel other people's emotions and fall in love with Mei and Anko? Please like, share and subscribe for more. Also check the other fics I've uploaded. Now let's start. A scared Anko made her way through the hospital, trying to find the room Naruto was in. After waking up in her bed, which she had no idea how she got there, she had received a message from the Hokage. The message read, Uzumaki Naruto has been hospitalized. She hadn't moved faster in all her life. How was that even possible? Her soldier boy was invincible, right? Turning the corner of the hallway, she found the room she was looking for. It was kind of hard to miss with all the bodies guarding it. There were 2 ANBU operatives stationed at the door she needed to get through. On the opposite side of the hall, Hyuga and Hyuga were sitting in waiting chairs. She decided to speak to them first. As she made her way to them, Hyuga noticed her, getting up from his seat and meeting her halfway. What happened, Hyuga? Anko asked fearfully. The Tokubetsu Jonin looked terrified, like he had seen a ghost. She was half right, he felt like he was the ghost. He shook his head. I don't know how, but... He looked back at the door Naruto was behind. I died last night, Anko. He was shaking, and his face expressed nothing but confusion. What? The snake user replied, even more confused than Hyuga. What do you mean? I mean I was killed last night, and Naruto. He brought me back. Anko could tell that he was serious. He reached into the pure world and brought me back. He shook his head again. How's that even possible? How can a 12-year-old do that? His hand rubbed the phantom wounds on his chest. I was wounded badly, but when I came back, they were gone, completely healed. He looked Anko in the eyes. I haven't coughed since then either. It's like when he brought me back, I was even better than before. Anko just listened to Hyuga's words. What the hell happened after the sinking? I guess something happened between him and Hyuga while I was. You know, because she cried herself to sleep, muttering how terrible of a sister she is over and over again. He sighed. She couldn't wait any longer. She needed to see him with her own eyes. She needed to hear what happened from his mouth, his voice. She didn't respond to Hyuga, she just walked forward towards where she knew he was. She could feel him, like he was right next to her the moment she woke up. She guessed this was the feeling he explained to her that he felt. She didn't even care that she could also feel Mei. She loved the feeling, and if Mei had to be in it, she'd put up with it. As she got to the door, she tried to walk past the very large Ashi and slender Uma. She didn't know or care who these ANBU were. She just needed to see him. She tried to reach the handle to open the door, but was stopped by the larger of the two. Ashi grabbed her wrist to stop her, and she didn't take kindly to being stopped. She reached for the giant hand holding her wrist and swatted it away, reaching for the handle once again with an annoyed expression. That's when Ashi vanished in an impossible burst of speed, grabbing the back of her neck. How did he get behind her so fast, and throwing her against the opposite wall? She slammed into it with a thud, and before she could react, the giant had her by the collar of her mesh armor, his other large fist drawn back ready to strike. Ashi grunted. Uma poked her head out from behind the giant and spoke. He wants your name. She said, her voice perfectly calm. Anko gave an incredulous look. What? She said heatedly. Ashi grunted. Again, Uma translated. He wants to know your name. And this is the last time he'll ask politely. Politely? He slammed her against a wall and threatened to smash her into said wall with his oversized fist, and he calls that polite? Nevertheless, Anko just wanted to see Naruto, so she relented with a sigh. Jonin Mitarashi Anko. Ninja registration 011226. I was informed that that Uzumaki Naruto was hospitalized by the Hokage. She sighed again. I just want to see him. Ashi grunted, letting go of the dango-loving woman. Ashi says you're on the list. You may enter, Jonin Mitarashi Anko. How the hell did the female ANBU operative know what the behemoth was saying? What she didn't know was that Rohan didn't need words to communicate. They were the perfect, most effective ANBU team Konoha has ever seen, and it was due to Inu Taicho and Nozumi Taicho's incredible teamwork exercises. Both Ashi and Uma let Anko enter the room with a nod of their heads. When she entered, Uchiha Sasuke stood from his chair, a kunai in his hands and his Sharingan activated. When he saw who it was, he calmed himself, sitting back down and deactivating his dojutsu. The ANBU operative in the corner didn't even react to her presence. Ukami knew that anyone entering that door had to be on the list of names given to them. If anyone who wasn't tried, half the village would know. Ushi was very destructive when it came to orders from Nizumi Taicho. He died before he failed a mission given to him from the blonde, unless of course failing meant saving a comrade. When Anko closed the door, Naruto's eyes opened, but they weren't Naruto's. "Oh. It's you. I was wondering when you were going to show up." Like his eyes, it was Naruto's lips moving, but the voice was far too deep and rough to belong to her knight. "What's going on?" She directed the question at Sasuke, knowing how close the Uchiha was to the blonde. Before Sasuke could answer, Naruto spoke. "They'll be here in a moment. Wait until they show up." Anko was confused for a few minutes before the door opened again, and in came three figures she knew. The Sandaime Hokage, Godame Mizukage, and Hitaki Kakashi walked through the door, all of them with a worried look on their faces. "Hokage-sama." Ukami bowed to his commander. The Sandaime nodded, recognizing one of his most powerful operatives. "We're all here now," he began. "What has happened to my shadow?" All eyes found Naruto's form and were met with blood-red, vertically slit ones. "That idiot did something stupid again, that's what." The deep voice said in an irritated tone. He sighed. "Let me begin with who I am." The blonde smirked, his elongated canines, greeting them. It's not every day mortals are graced with the privilege of speaking to the mighty Kyubi no Kitsune. The majority of the room froze. The Hokage and Kakashi knew of Naruto's relationship with the powerful Bijou, but most of the room, besides Sasuke, had never seen this before. The Kyubi roared with laughter, the vibrations sounding throughout the room. "Ah, the joy of terrifying humans," he chuckled once more, "I miss this." Mei was the first to speak. "What have you done to Naruto, demon?" Was she the only one upset with him being possessed by the embodiment of hatred? Once again, Kurama roared with laughter. "You speak as if I could do anything to your precious angel even if I wanted to." Mei and Anko's eyes widened. The Bijou just very subtly announced he knew of their personal relationships with Naruto. "Naruto is far too powerful for me to take on and has been for years now." He became serious. "The Bijou respect my Jinchuriki. He is the child of prophecy and has sworn to save us. All of us." Hearing that was surprising. The Bijou were supposed to hate humanity. "And I am not a demon. You humans are always so quick to title what you don't understand demonic. And as for your question, you are a few thousand years too young to give me orders." He looked to Hiruzen. "Hiruzen, you may speak to me as an equal, but only because my partner has told me to do so. Ask your questions, but do not think for a moment that I have harmed Naruto." Hiruzen nodded, already knowing Naruto's most important law. The Hokage's word is absolute. "What has happened to him? Why are you in control?" This was as good a place to start as any. The kid discovered a new form of senjutsu. Hiruzen and Kakashi's eyes widened. He had found another? He explained it to us that his sage dust was him converting natural energy into yang chakra, bringing form to it in the impure world. Everyone was trying to pay close attention. This was a breakthrough in chakra theory the likes of which haven't been done in years. He viewed his senjutsu as a number line, the positive side being yang. He discovered that the negative side was yin. Once he had that in mind, it wasn't long before he discovered what yin natural energy could do. He waited for everyone to digest what was just said. "We left the village last night for..." His red, slitted eyes flicked to Anko and Mei, personal reasons. Both women were glad the Bijou held his tongue. "When we returned, he felt Hyuga's broken heart. When we found her, Gecko Hayate was dead." The room went still. "Gecko Hayate is right outside this room," Kakashi announced. "Are you saying that he is an imposter?" he asked seriously. "No. I'm saying that my idiot Jinchuriki decided to risk his own life for his ungrateful sister's fiancé." He scowled. "The yin half of his sage dust is life itself." Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. "Naruto was able to give form to the natural energy within the pure world and brought Gecko Hayate's soul back." Everyone but Sasuke's eyes widened. He had already been told of this, even the always calm Ukami's. "That's not possible, even theoretically." "It's not possible to bring the dead back to life," Mei said. Kurama snorted. "You are but a child, Mizukage. You have no idea what is possible in this world. And you should know better by now, he smirked again, there isn't anything Naruto can't do. Mei went to speak, but Hiruzen beat her to it. What happened afterwards? Why are you in control? Kurama huffed. That idiot used the new Sage Dust technique prematurely. He had no idea what all was involved. You can't just bring the dead back to life without consequences. Kakashi, Anko, and Mei looked worried for the blonde. He didn't count on the power of his own will. He shook his head. He somewhat knew that his will was different than others when he created Tengaku Kurito. The natural energy made angels are sentient, or that's what he thought. We now know that it wasn't the angels that were sentient, but his own will. I'm afraid I don't understand. Hiruzen admitted. Even the professor was stumped. Kurama sighed. Humans. Take me for example, he began. I'm a massive accumulation of chakra, given sentience. I only have a form because I will it. Sentience is just another name for will. Unlike most humans, Naruto has the greatest willpower I've ever seen, stronger than my own. When something that powerful exists, it's no longer, for lack of a better word, dead. The dim-witted human still looked confused. Kurama shook his head with a sigh. Okay, in simpleton terms, this will of fire you're so fond of speaking of is not figurative with Naruto anymore. His passion to protect, to love, is so great that it's alive. It has a mind of its own. It's Naruto, but it's his passion, his desire. And all that kid desires is to save the world and everyone in it. Hiruzen began to understand. It's like his subconscious mind takes over, and all it thinks about is to protect and serve. Kurama nodded. Yes. Usually this doesn't come of anything, but Naruto. I've never seen or heard of anything like him before in all my years. There was only one man in existence who was ever supposed to wield power like this. Hiruzen had to ask. And who was this man? The Kyuubi was silent for a moment. He had only ever spoken to Naruto about this before, but his first friend, his only friend, trusted these people, so he would as well. My father, the Rikudo Sennin. The Rikudo Sennin is just a legend, isn't he? Anko asked. She had only heard about the Sage of Six Paths once or twice before. He was supposed to be a man turned god who gave people his chakra and saved the world from a great evil. My existence proves that he was very real. Kurama replied. He had the power over life and death. He could create anything out of nothing. He smirked. He created the moon. Anko decided to shut up. An ancient old bijou was giving them the secrets most people would kill for. My father had told us someone would come and reunite us bijou, he gave the Hokage a look. Hiruzen knew what that look meant. Naruto is that person. That's why I never worried about his ridiculous strength and impossible accomplishments, but now. What is it? Hiruzen asked. The Rinnegan is supposed to be the only thing that can give back life. The fact that Naruto's done it with nothing but natural energy. He shook his head. It worries me. He's far too powerful for a mortal. He already has more chakra than me. That was news to everyone. At the rate he's going to surpass the raw strength of my father in a couple of years. Even Hiruzen was shocked. The Rikudo Sennin was hailed as an actual god. Of course, my father had strength beyond his raw power, such as creation, but Naruto is slowly making his way to that plane of existence. He's about to reach divinity. It took my father years to truly ascend, but Naruto is almost there now. He paused. This wouldn't bother me except. Please, tell us. Hiruzen pleaded at the Kyuubi's silence. The prophecy. It states that a blue-eyed boy that played with the bijou would save the world. Or destroys it. The people in the room froze. Right now, there's no doubt in my mind that Naruto will save us all. But there are too many things hurting him right now. He's too selfless. He's lonely and confused. Mei and Anko saw the red eyes of the bijou meet theirs. This village that he loves so much has broken his image of himself. These ignorant villagers have hated him since his birth, because of me, and he's been able to understand that the whole time. He paused. Making sure Anko and Mei were looking at him since this applied to the two of them the most. He hates himself. Mei and Anko's hearts hurt. You can only tell someone they're a monster for so long before they start to believe it. He looked at Kakashi and Hiruzen. His will decided that if everyone saw him as a monster, then that's what he was. He was able to embrace that, turning it into a way to protect his home, his heaven, but that was just by chance. It could have gone the opposite way and, well, Konoha wouldn't be here anymore. Sasuke chuckled. It's not just chance, and you know it. Kurama looked at the Uchiha from the corner of his eye. The brat could already feel it then. Maybe not, but the fact still remains, he needs the only thing he's ever craved for, ever wanted for himself. And what's that? Hiruzen asked. Kurama didn't speak, but everyone saw him look at Anko and the Mizukage. Back to why I'm in control, he started again. He underestimated his own conscious will, and when he brought Hate back, his chakra converted itself to healing chakra. Kakashi spoke up. Naruto doesn't know medical ninjutsu, though. The Kyuubi nodded. No, he doesn't. But he's lived in a village where the best medical ninja practice it every day. Once again, he underestimated his will, because his subconscious mind was able to use his empathy as well. Everything he didn't pay attention to, his subconscious decided to do it for him. He looked at the door. He knew Hate and Hyuga were behind it. When he brought Hate back, Hyuga had done something Naruto never thought she'd ever do. He growled. She expressed hatred towards him. Kakashi narrowed his eyes in confusion. Why would she do that? They're like siblings, she loves him. Once again, the Bija's red, slitted eyes met Anko's and Mei's. She blamed him for his death. She thought he should have felt the battle between him and whoever killed him and stepped in to save him. But like I said, we were not in the village. He sighed. This only strengthened his hate for himself. It made him feel like his own desires were a bad thing. His expression darkened. I've never felt pain from him like I did last night. The Kyuubi was honestly worried for his Jinchuriki. It brought out his hatred for himself, and that fueled his selfless desire to help people, and more specifically, help Hate. He wasn't prepared for the switch to healing chakra, so it took almost all of his chakra in one go. He barely had enough to survive before he asked me to take over. He chuckled. It wasn't a happy chuckle. Even on the verge of death, he thought about the village first. He knew that his body, and more importantly, what's within his body, was something too valuable to fall into the wrong hands. He wanted to make sure his body stayed in Konoha. Hiruzen was silent for a moment before he sighed deeply. How long will it take for him to recover? He already has. Kurama admitted. I'm keeping him asleep so that I can explain this to all of you. If it was up to him, he'd push it down. He'd sacrifice the only thing he really wants. Again, Mei and Anko were within the Kyuubi's gaze, and went back to selflessly living for nothing but the protection of Konoha. Is there a way to help him? Kakashi asked. His relationship with the Uchiha runt is already helping him. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at the Biju. He views him as a brother. And he feels like their relationship will better Konoha since he's training him to be the next Uchiha Madara. He growled. Very stupid idea, but he won't listen to me. He sighed. Other than that, there's really nothing anyone can do except for two certain idiots to open their eyes and accept what they already know is going to happen. Mei and Anko looked at each other, still able to feel their memories, their souls. Where do we go from here, then? Hiruzen asked. Naruto is going to take Sasuke on some super-secret elite training camp for the mentally insane for the month. They'll be back the day before the Chunin exams. Hiruzen nodded. That was the day they were going to decide what to do with their sake problem. In that time, I suggest you make up your minds on what you want from Naruto. He laughed. He's going to be pissed that I told you all of his little secrets, but this had to happen. You need to know that the only thing that's hurting him is all of you. Everyone was silent. They knew he was telling the truth, especially Anko and Mei. Now, I need to speak with the snake lover and sun wannabe in private. Kurama announced. No one got his joke about the Yonbi since no one knew his name. Nevertheless, everyone except the two kunoichi stepped out. Alright ladies, we need to talk. And what exactly do we need to talk about? Mei asked. The fact that Naruto loves the both of you, and you both love him, and yet, neither of you are willing to compromise. It's not that simple. Anko whispered. Mortals, and your idiotic views on love. He shook his head. You've seen his heart, his soul. What else does he have to do to show you that he loves both of you equally? You're suggesting we share him? Mei asked angrily. I don't know what you think love is, but I'm not interested in giving anyone a harem. I'm a woman, not a slut. Kurama sighed. A harem, little girl, is not what I'm suggesting. He smirked. If Naruto wanted a harem, there are multiple women out there that are more than willing to give him that. He shook his head. That's not what Naruto wants. You look at love like it's only possible between two people. Anko and Mei nodded their heads. My father has 11 children, and he loved us all equally. Mei opened her mouth to counter, but Kurama held up his hand and stopped her. Before you say it's different, truly think about it. All love is the same. You're thinking about intimacy. The two are completely different. How are they different? Anko asked. Love is the feelings of affection one feels towards another. Intimacy is a kind of relationship. It's something you do, not feel. A man loves his wife just as much as he loves his mother. That love, believe it or not, is the same. All that's different is the relationship between the two. Neither could argue with the Bijuu's surprisingly detailed and annoyingly correct logic. Both Mei and Anko had never looked at the meaning behind love and intimacy before. In society, it's viewed as the same. Neither woman said a word, so the Kyuubi continued. Naruto actually loves the two of you. There was never a time he looked at another woman because all he cared about was you two. He gave them an expectant look. You both know how easy it would be for him to sleep around with whoever he wanted. But he doesn't desire pointless pleasure. He doesn't want you two for his sexual fantasies. He wants you two because you're all he can think about. He just wants to be around you. He just wants to protect and hold you. He's willing to die for both of you, and you're both too stupid to realize that he could make it work. Anko and Mei were silent. Mei, you asked him last night if he ever truly loved you. I'm starting to wonder if either of you ever truly loved him. Of course I love him. Anko shouted, pissed off that he'd even suggest anything else. Don't you dare think I didn't love him. I still do. Mei shouted. Then humans have a fucked up view on love, because if I were either of you, and I had someone like Uzumaki Naruto ready love me, even if it was alongside another, I'd jump for joy. Kurama viewed himself as male, but he technically had no gender, so he was able to view both the male and female sides of a relationship. There's no such thing as the perfect man, or person, but Naruto is the closest thing to perfection. His expression turned serious. Which was strange, because with the animalistic traits the Kyuubi gave the blonde when he was in control always made him look serious. I can't force the blind to see, he began, but I will force this. He was going to give them an ultimatum. Whether you decide to get over your moronic ideals of love between two people, or decide to throw away the love of the one person that can give you everything you desire, make that decision by the time he returns in a month. Because if you haven't made a decision by then I'll make it for you. He narrowed his eyes, and neither of you will get him. Mei and Anko looked at him incredulously. That was not at all fair. Anko even said as much. That's not fair at all. She shouted indignantly. No. What's not fair is the selfishness of you two. Now that hit both Kunoichi hard. Now leave. Naruto's going to wake up soon, and he's going to want to be alone. Mei was going to protest. She wanted to speak with him, make sure he was okay before he left for an entire month, but Kurama was having none of it. Go. He shouted, his angry voice causing both Kunoichi to flinch. They had forgotten that they were speaking to the most powerful of the Bijuu, so he decided to remind them. With that said, both women had no choice but to leave. They had much to think about, and they only had a month. Now that Mei thought about it, it wasn't very much time at all. The Bijuu wanted to stomp Naruto into the ground. He hated the fact that he was willing to go this far to help him. He just couldn't help it. His friend deserved some happiness. As they left, Sasuke entered. How long have you known? Kurama asked. Sasuke was silent for a moment before a smirk crossed his face. And which villages did you say were participating? A small, hovering man asked. Sunagakure and my very own Otogakure. The taller of the two replied. And why exactly would I want to help you? We've been enemies most of your life. The small man asked. Orochimaru smirked. You haven't checked the bingo books lately, have you? Anoki, the Tsuchikage, huffed. And why would I care to do that? He didn't know why the snake Sannin showed up in his country, but he was willing to hear him out. That's why they were here, in the underground compound below Iwa that he used to speak in private with important guests. Oh, I think you will be very interested in taking a look. A certain shinobi just got his entry updated. Orochimaru took out the black book, turning it to the 33rd page. Inoki was annoyed but decided to indulge the Sannin. Name, Uzumaki Naruto, previously entered as Nezumi. Flee on sight. Affiliation, Konoha no Sato. Clan, Uzumaki. Family, Namikaze Minato, Uzumaki Kushina, Jiraiya. Age, 13. Height, 151.6 centimeters. Hair color, blonde. Rank, SS class. Classification, Sage, Censor, Jinchuriki. Notes, Uzumaki Naruto is the most powerful shinobi in Hai no Kuni. He has very close ties with Nami no Kuni and Mizu no Kuni. It has been proven that he is responsible for the death of the Yonde Mizukage, the Jinchuriki Yugura. It is speculated that he is responsible for the death of another Jinchuriki, Yotan no Rashi. He's also the second shinobi, the first since his father, to gain the flee on sight mark, and the only shinobi to gain it outside of wartime. Recommendations for approach, NA. Warning, do not anger. Bounty, none has been posted. Inoki narrowed his eyes. So the butcher had a child after all? And he was also responsible for the death of his country's Jinchuriki? That Tsuchikage had made his decision the moment he saw the name of the boy's father. It had already been a week since the little talking the Kyuubi gave them, and Anko had finally made up her mind to go and speak to Mei. She didn't doubt the Biju's words when he said their indecisiveness would end up in them both losing Naruto. She wanted to speak to the Mizukage. She had seen, felt the woman's life. It was not an easy life. She understood how the woman felt, so Anko thought that if they made their decisions, it should be together. They only had 3 more weeks before they had to make up their minds, and Anko would die before she hurt Naruto. She didn't know if or how she'd share him, but Naruto was worth it. The Kyuubi's words hit home with her, and most likely Mei as well. Naruto hated himself already for just being him. Having to hate himself for loving the both of them too. It was too much for anyone. Naruto embraced the monster life because that was the only thing he could do. It was a way he could cope. It was his release, his way of waking up from the nightmare that was his everyday life. He may love being a monster now, but it must have been so hard to get to this point. He was just a child and he hated himself. It made Anko hate the villagers. That was counterproductive though, because Naruto loved them. It amazed her how selfless, how strong his heart was every time she thought about it. He was one of those 1 in a million types of people, and the Kyuubi was right, they were idiots. Here they were, just adding to his struggles. All he wanted was to love them, protect them, give them everything they wanted. What was so wrong with that? The fact that he hated himself hurt the snake user to her core. He was the greatest person she'd ever met. He needed to know how special he was, how much he meant to her. That's why, as she stood at the door of the hotel room the Mizukage was staying, she made up her mind. Anko knocked on the door. Kurama tells me you've discovered who you really are. Naruto suddenly said. The two were taking a short break from their training. Naruto decided to train himself alongside Sasuke. It bettered the training mood if everyone worked up a sweat. HN. Sasuke replied. He was so exhausted that he didn't even want to talk right now. They rarely took breaks, and Naruto was a damn sadistic slave driver. He couldn't help it though. This was how Kakashi had taught him. You don't really know what that means though, do you? The blonde asked. Sasuke shook his head. No. And I don't really care. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Why's that? He asked. Sasuke sighed. It looked like he wasn't going to get much rest. Whatever we're meant to do. I don't care. I'm done with others telling me how to live my life. Memories of Itachi urging him to cling to his pathetic life rang through his mind. I figure that standing beside you instead of against you will help me. I'm still so angry. I find myself hating everything for no reason. He let out a deep breath. I'm tired. Aren't you? Naruto smirked. Sasuke was definitely different, just like him. You have no idea how so. Then let's just stop. Let's end it here, now. I want to be able to love again. I want someone to love me. He said softly, not at all embarrassed. He could be totally honest with Naruto. They were brothers after all. Naruto smiled. You know, that sounds good to me. His smile turned softer, and a little more serious. And you already have someone that loves you, Sasuke. You know it. I know it. Everyone knows it. The cherry blossom replaced Itachi's words. You just need to accept her. Accept her and let her make you happy. Sasuke's eyes turned to the clouds. He never understood what Shikamaru saw in just watching the condensed water. But now, as tired as he was, he understood. Give me an extra 5 minutes, and I'll ask her on a date the first thing I do when we get back. 3 minutes. Naruto smirked. Deal. The Uchiha rolled back over on his side, trying to hide his slightly redder cheeks and small smile. Silly Sasuke, the Kamikage could see everything. Hayate slowly opened his eyes. He was finally starting to get over being brought back from the dead. It was a strange feeling. There were no after effects, besides his lack of chronic cough, but he felt like he didn't deserve it. He was just a random Tokubetsu Jonin. Why did Naruto risk his life to bring him back? Yeah, he was Hyuga's fiancé, but at the time he had been hurt by his sister. He claimed that he'd no longer stay with them, or so Hyuga told him, so why did he still decide to help him? He decided to ask him when he got back, but right now, he had more important matters to deal with. He sat up in his bed, yawning as he stretched. He didn't even look at the empty place in the bed. He already knew where Hyuga was. He got out of bed, stretching again as he made his way out of the room. Hyuga had been excused from service for 2 weeks now. She needed to get her emotions under control. She couldn't stand herself for what she did to Naruto. She knew he could feel her hate towards him. He hadn't done anything wrong, and she had hated him. She felt sick, and the entire 2 weeks, Hayate would wake up to an empty bed. He walked down the hallway, coming to a stop at the room Naruto used. He opened the door and entered. All of his stuff was still here, him leaving with his student the moment he woke from the hospital. In his bed, Hyuga laid, curled up in his sheets. He walked over to the bed, sighing when he saw her puffy eyes. She was so upset with herself. She'd end up here every night for the 2 weeks he was gone. Hayate didn't know what he could do for her. She wouldn't listen to a thing anyone said. She hurt her Atudo, and she felt like scum because of it. She was supposed to be there for him no matter what. He had done everything for her. And even when she hated him, he risked his own life to bring her fiancé back to her. She didn't deserve Hayate or Naruto. Hayate did the only thing he could do. He laid next to his fiancé, not even surprised when she whimpered and clung to him. She could barely sleep, even in Naruto's bed. He spent the next hour rubbing Hyuga's back gently, trying to stop the tears that ran down her face. Hyuga was a silent crier, which was even worse. It seemed like she was in even more pain this way than if she cried out loud. Naruto signaled for Sasuke to stop what he was doing. There was an uninvited guest about to show their face. It only took 10 seconds for Gaara to appear at the secluded clearing outside the village. Ah, the Tanuki makes his appearance. Naruto said with a smirk. What can we do for you on this humble day, Gaara? There was no reason they couldn't be friendly. You know about the invasion, don't you? He asked, bluntly. Sasuke nodded his head. This guy had balls. He could respect that. Naruto did something Gaara didn't expect. Sure do. He said simply with a smile. You don't seem to care. Gaara said with a hint of curiosity. Oh, I do care. It's just. He crossed his arms and adopted a thinking pose. Well, think about it like this. His face turned sinister. You and all the others who think they can take Konoha are like a bug. He said while pointing at Gaara. And me. I'm the boot. He finished while pointing at himself. Sasuke smirked. So I dare you to try and raise heaven. Then you and everyone else will see what happens when I'm really angry. Gaara narrowed his eyes. He really wanted to just attack the blonde right now, but Mother kept screaming at him to leave. It infuriated him that she didn't crave his blood. He wanted to prove his existence, and the Kamikage wasn't allowing him to do so. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Gar felt like he once did. He just wanted to wake up. His method was flawed though. Maybe, just maybe, he could help the Jinchuriki with his problem. It depended on him surviving his assault though, because he was not going to pull his punches. That would be his first step. Surviving. Was there anything else you needed, Gaara? We were kind of in the middle of something. Naruto finally said after an awkward moment of silence. Gaara didn't say a word. He just turned around and started walking away. He's like us, isn't he? Sasuke asked when Gaara was finally out of sight. Naruto nodded. Maybe. He rolled his shoulders. Let's get back to it. Sasuke nodded. He was eager to continue. He had gotten over the exhaustion and now looked forward to the burn of his muscles and tenketsu. He was getting much stronger. He could feel it. He felt good. He felt like a monster. Hana rushed into the humble Ichiraka ramen shop, out of breath and wide-eyed, holding a little black book. Within the restaurant, a particular bunch was assembled. The first person the Inuzuka Chunin noticed was her two best friends, Mitarashi Anko and Yuhi Kurenai. The next two people she noticed were Sarutobi Asuma and a beautiful auburn-haired woman. She blinked in confusion. "Ah, who's this?" she asked the general group. Anko slurped down the noodles she had in her mouth and slapped Mei on the back in a show of rough friendship. Mei, who also had noodles in her mouth, choked at the surprising gesture. Anko either didn't notice her death glare or didn't care. "Inuzuka Hana, this is my new sister, Terumi Mei, the Godai Mizukage," she shouted in a slur. Apparently, Anko was already tipsy. Mei sighed and grabbed the bridge of her nose with her right hand. "I told you not to call me that, Anko. It just makes this feel all the more weird." Hana raised an eyebrow. "Make what weird?" she asked in confusion. Both Anko and Mei totally ignored the veterinarian, which annoyed her greatly. "Don't take it personally, Hana-chan." Kurenai spoke up. "They did the same to us." She sighed in exasperation. "Anyways, why did you look so shocked a moment ago?" she asked, noticing the bingo book within her friend's hands. Hana's eyes widened again. "Oh!" she shouted. "Have you guys checked the new bingo book entries?" She didn't even wait for them to answer before she started again. "I guess Hokage-sama updated Cutie's entry, because there's a whole lot of more info." She quickly turned to the 33rd page. While she was doing this, Mei raised an eyebrow. "Cutie?" she asked. Anko smiled. "Naruto." Mei turned back to the Konoha skank, an absolutely dark expression on her face. Maybe Mei was a little tipsy too. I saw his face and decided to check if anything else was added. She showed them the page Naruto was on, pointing to a certain spot. "Look. It says right here. Family Namikaze Minato, Uzumaki Kushina. Kurenai and Asuma's eyes widened. "Cutie's the son of the Yondaime Hokage and Kushina sensei." Kurenai turned to the calm faces of Anko and her sister. "Did you know about this, Anko?" Kurenai asked. Anko snorted. "Of course I knew. I am his woman, Kurenai," the snake user said offhandedly. Asuma, Kurenai, and Hana's eyes widened ever wider, if that was possible. Anko had just admitted to being the bringer of hope's woman. Asuma was the first to shake off the shock. He cleared his throat. "So Naruto's the son of the Yellow Flash?" He nodded, slowly. "I believe it. Not only is he strong like Yondaime-sama, he looks just like him." Hana and Kurenai decided to follow Asuma's lead in ignoring Anko's comment. "Yeah," Hana stated. "I guess the good-looking genes run in the family. And he asked me to start Suzu's training. I'm training the Yondaime sons Nin-ken," she said with a playful smile. This time, both Anko and Mei looked at the Inuzuka with angry eyes. They were more alike than either would admit. "Did you guys hear about what happened with Hayate?" Kurenai asked. Asuma and Hana shook their heads, Anko and Mei deciding to just stay silent. "He was killed." Asuma shook his head again. "I just saw Hayate today." Kurenai nodded. "That's the thing. Supposedly Naruto disagreed with his murder." Hana looked confused. "Naruto brought him back." He resurrected Hayate. What? Hana asked intelligently. A friend of mine is in ANBU. She was with the cell that first found his body. Kurenai began. Apparently Hayate had been dead for an hour before Naruto arrived. Mei and Anko were still silent. After touching him, Hayate came back to life, and all of his wounds vanished. Hana and Asuma were very interested in this story. I guess it was difficult because Naruto was hospitalized afterwards. She shook her head. No one has seen him since. Is that true? I mean, it's impossible to bring the dead back to life, right? Hana asked. Kurenai shrugged. He's always saying how nothing is impossible for him. I think he just proved that statement because Hayate's alive. Why hasn't he been seen since? Asuma asked, curiously. As the son of the Sandaime Hokage, the man who had at least some knowledge on every technique created in Konoha, the Jonin knew about the Nidame's Edo Tensei. He was sworn to keep it a secret though, and he knew that even Naruto wasn't allowed to use such a horrendous jutsu, so he kept quiet about it. I don't know, but Hyuga hasn't spoken to me or anyone in 3 weeks. I don't know what all happened that night, but I know that it hurt Naruto. Everyone turned when both Mei and Anko suddenly stood from their stools. They put down the money for their meals and walked off in the same direction, not looking very pleased. What's with them? And since when did Anko know the Mizukage? Hana asked. Kurenai just stared at the retreating forms of the kunoichi. I don't know, Hana. I don't know. She really needed to find out what was going on with her friends. All of them. It was the night before Naruto and Sasuke were going to return to Konoha, and the two had just finished their last insane training session. Both shinobi were exhausted, their muscles ached and their tenketsu burned. But even through the pain and exhaustion, they had smiles on their faces. Both had accomplished what they set out to do. Do you think you can teach that to me sometime, too? Sasuke asked softly. He was lying on the comfortably cold ground next to the blonde, just staring at the stars that littered the night sky. I don't think it's for you, Sasuke. He replied honestly. I can usually learn anything within a few hours, or at the very most a few days. This took me a whole month. He sighed. I don't know if anyone can learn how to use this again after me. It's ridiculously complicated and far too intricate. Sasuke sighed. Oh well. He was too tired to be disappointed. Some things are just impossible, unless your name's Uzumaki Naruto. Why did you learn it? You're already strong enough without it. Sasuke didn't understand why someone like Naruto would need that technique. Images of Hayate's dead body plagued his mind. He never wanted to see someone he knew and loved like that again. He had been too slow. But now, with his father's legacy, he would never have that problem again. Sasuke was so exhausted that he passed out, not even getting Yashirosho's answer. Now with his father's memory in his mind, he couldn't help but remember the first time he met the powerful Kage. Flashback. This should have happened a long time ago. Nezumi knew Kurama was his partner. He knew that the most powerful Bijou was genuinely ready and willing to help him. He didn't know it until a year ago, but the man who left the key to him was his own father. It was his birthright. Unfortunately, Jiraiya-sensei was less than convinced that the Kyuubi no Kitsune was willing to obey. It wasn't until he returned from Mizu no Kuni that he admitted Kurama was his ally. He couldn't claim that the Bijou were evil anymore. After he completed the second task in Mizu the Hokage gave him, Jiraiya knew that his godson was ready. Don't worry, sensei. I know who he is. He's my friend, my first friend. He won't betray me. He smirked. And he wouldn't be able to even if he tried. Jiraiya sighed. I know. It's just strange for me. I thought you'd be ready for this when you were older. He shook his head slowly. It just reminds me how eerily precise your father was. He could see the way events would unfold years into the future. He had the sight, more than anyone I've ever known. He smiled. If he could see how you turned out. You're the perfect son, Naruto. Nezumi smiled. He didn't care if he used his name in front of Nico and Ukami, they were his right and left hands in Rohan. He could feel his godfather's mind. Jiraiya saw him as his own son. Good. Nezumi always thought of the toad Sannin as his father too. Thank you, sensei. He had to sound official. Nico and Ukami were still shinobi of the leaf, and Jiraiya was one of the most respected ninja currently a part of the village. The Sanin's face turned serious. Are you ready? Nezumi nodded. He'd been ready for years. Jiraiya opened his mouth, and a few seconds later, a vertically long toad made its way into the open. What's with calling me out, Jiraiya? The scroll toad from Mount Myaboku asked annoyingly. Jiraiya pointed at his godson. Minato's boy is ready for the key, Jiratora. He said in a commanding voice. The perverted Sannin was always joking around, so a lot of people, and toads for that matter, treated him like the goofball he usually was. However, if you knew the Sannin, you knew exactly how powerful he really was. It was said that Orochimaru was the greatest of the Sannin, and then Tsunade, and then Jiraiya. But when Jiraiya entered Sage Mode, he was even more powerful than the Hibi Sannin. He was truly a terrifying man to face when he wanted to kill. Jiratora knew this was the serious Jiraiya speaking, so instead of making a witty remark, he kept his mouth shut and opened the stomach scroll. It's time, Nezumi. The Sandaime Hokage began. It's time for you to walk where no other has walked before. You are about to take your place among the truly powerful shinobi of Konohagakure no Sato. He smiled. Take pride, my boy. You are about to join the heavens. Nezumi bowed to his commander. He would do this for Konoha, his heaven, but there was another reason he wanted this. The bijou. They weren't just tools to be used. He didn't want this power to command. He wanted this power to protect. The bijou were much more than powerful chakra entities. They were his family. They were his brothers and sisters. He was the child of prophecy, and he embraced that fact. He was a monster, as were they, and they belonged together. Jiraiya bit his thumb, sliding the bloody finger across his arm, before going into a frenzy of hand seals. Kuchiyos no Jutsu. He called out. With two small bursts of smoke, the elders of Mount Myaboku appeared. Ah, Jiraiya boy. Fukasaku shouted happily. It's been a while. Shima, Fukasaku's wife, smiled, which was a little weird looking since, well, she was a toad. That it has, Jiraiya-kun. What's with the summoning? She asked. Before she could answer, Jiraiya was already summoning again. Kuchiyos no Jutsu. He called out again. This time, the burst of smoke was much, much larger than the last. In all his glory, the great chief toad, Gamabunta, was among the others in the large training ground one, the Hokage's personal training grounds. Jiraiya. The chief roared. It was a bad idea to summon me again. The giant toad was about to scream in anger again until he saw the god of shinobi and his shadow. That's when Gamabunta went silent. Jiraiya began. Nezumi of Konoha is ready to unlock the power his father left him. He put his arms high into the air, signaling everyone present. Those gathered have been chosen to witness this event. His eyes scanned the faces of those gathered. Hatake Kakashi, he started with the first one. His eyes met. You were the student of this operative's father. You are practically his elder brother. You are a strong shinobi of our village, and we are grateful for you taking this boy under your wing. Kakashi nodded. Nico, Ukami, he started on the next. The two of you are this operative's right and left hands. You are the sword and the shield the Kamikage wields. The A and BU were silent. They appreciated the words greatly, but they were A and BU. They didn't show emotion, ever. Sarutobi-sensei, his eyes met his teacher's. You are like this operative's grandfather. You are the commander of heaven, and your shadow has succeeded thanks to your teachings. The Hokage smiled. Fukasaku-sama, Shima-sama, he started on the elders. You were the teachers of this operative's father as well. The Yondaime Hokage learned the honorable senjutsu from the two of you. You connected father and son, even if you were unaware of it at the time. The toads nodded. Gamabunta, the chief toad, decided to let Jiraiya speak. When his first summoner was serious like this, the giant toad had nothing but the utmost respect and obedience for him. You were this operative's father's warrior, protector. You helped him, as well as me, fight many battles. Knowing that you are now Nezumi's guardian brings me happiness. Gamabunta raised his head, taking pride in the Sanin's words. He finally made his way to Nezumi. ANBU operative Nezumi straightened. His sensei only used this tone when the battle-hardened war hero was speaking, and the confidence in it commanded respect. I was your father's sensei. He was like a son to me, as are you. Nezumi smiled under his mask. Having a hand in teaching you the shinobi's way is truly an incredible gift. If your father was here, he would have nothing but content for the way you have turned out. He took in a deep breath, hoping Minato and Kushina were here with them. Your father knew you would one day be ready to tame the incredible chakra of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He knew his son would surpass even him. That is why he left you this key. He pointed at the scroll. This is the key to unlocking the Hack no Fuin Shiki. With it, you will open the great gates that hold the Bija back. With it, you attain something no man has ever before. With it, you will have the greatest of the Bija by your side. You are the first man to gain the Kyuubi's respect. That in and of itself is proof that your father knew what you would become. He smirked. Now, take what is yours, and only yours, like your father wished. Nezumi also smirked. It was time for him and Kurama to finally become one for real. He stepped forward, his already bloody fingertips pressing against the odd-feeling scroll. It was time for him to fulfill his greatest promise. Kurama would be free. The moment he closed his eyes, he was standing in front of the gates that kept the most powerful Bijou at bay. He was going to rip these bars apart. He felt the Kyuubi's soul. He didn't say a word. He just stared at the impossible blonde child before him. This was without a doubt the one his father spoke of. The boy was about to fulfill a promise made to a Bijou, something that rarely ever happened. He knew he would fight alongside this child for the rest of his life. They were partners. They were friends. They were family. Are you ready to be free, my friend? He asked the Kyuubi. Kurama breathed loudly. I've waited for this my entire life. Kurama had felt trapped in this nightmare since the old Sannin passed. He was never truly free, even if he wasn't trapped in a human. He was a slave to his own hatred. He was tired of just hating. He wanted what only Naruto could give. I'm ready to wake up, Naruto. He said with the saddest voice the Uzumaki had ever heard from his first friend. This only strengthened his resolve. Good. Because it's about time you woke up, lazy. He said playfully. Kurama chuckled softly. The blonde then hardened his features, his mask gone in his own mindscape. Blue eyes met red before Naruto lifted up his shirt, kanji appearing up and down his right arm. He brought his hand to his stomach, to seal the Kyuubi was caged within. He hated cages, and he was set on ridding Konoha of all of them. As he turned his hand, something impossible happened. The hand holding his, preventing him from letting his partner free, belonged to his hero. The hand holding his back was his father's. Titu-san? He asked, surprisingly. He had always felt the chakra he guessed belonged to his parents, but never before did he think he'd ever meet them. Naruto. The yondaime whispered. He then looked at the giant form of the Kyuubi. You can't have my son, Kyuubi. He said. It was strange though. He didn't speak to the Bija like he was a demon, which was what most humans did to his kind. He only spoke as a father, worried for his child. That's when something Minato never thought he'd ever see happened. Kurama smiled. I do not wish to harm my only friend, yondaime. He looked to Naruto. I wish to stand alongside him. Minato's eyes widened. He looked back to his son when he felt him begin to turn his hand. Wait. He shouted. He was so confused. Why was his son smiling? The great gates opened. Minato panicked. He was too late. There was no way Naruto was ready to fight the Kyuubi. He had failed the only mission that truly mattered. He had failed his son. Tusan, he heard his child's voice. It's fine. Look. Minato raised his head, opening the eyes he shut in pain. Kurama is not my enemy. He is my friend. He looked at his son incredulously. Why you befriended a Bijou? He asked, shocked. That's when Naruto smiled again. His eyes looked to the left, and when Minato followed, he froze. Kurama smirked as he looked at what the two humans were looking at. Naruto really was impossibly incredible. And then, after a good minute, the father smiled. I knew you'd be the one Jiraiya-sensei spoke about. He turned to his son. But how old are you? How is this, he waved to the right, possible? He could hardly believe it. Naruto smiled. I'm my father's son, that's how. It was a simple answer, but it was the truth. And I'm 9. 9 today. The Namikaze gave a content smile. He didn't know how his son was so powerful at 9, but that didn't matter much. He had become the shinobi he knew he'd be. Happy birthday, son. That had been one of the many things Minato wanted more than anything when he was dying. To be able to wish his child a happy birthday. Naruto looked uncomfortable. Tusan. He sighed. It is okay, Naruto. The yondaime suddenly said. He knew exactly what his son was going to say. Shinobi have to do the terrible to protect the innocent from the wicked. If his son was again, he looked to the right this strong, he knew he would have taken lives, many, many lives. Naruto was still silent. But I'm a monster, Tusan. The blood that stains my hands belonged to the wicked, that's true, but I liked taking their lives. Naruto stopped when he felt the large hand on his head. Sometimes, the world needs monsters like you, Naruto. And as a father, I couldn't be happier. Naruto just froze. He had been accepted by the most important man in his life. I don't deserve these words, but I feel like being a little selfish. The yellow flash started. I love you, Naruto, and I'm proud to have you as a son. With these words, Naruto's father vanished, his chakra no longer able to sustain his form. With these words, the Kyuubi gave a monstrous smile, because he knew what this had done for his friend. With these words, Naruto was sure of himself. He was a monster, and his father accepted him. He would never let his father down. This was the first time the monster felt invincible. End flashback. This was all for now. Thank you for watching, I hope you liked it and that you will be back for more. Please like, share and subscribe. See ya.